Hello, friends. This is Debojyoti, and today we have a very special guest. She's an actress, she's a singer, and Dorothée Koon. How are you, Dorothy? And Dorothy, where are you currently? You're currently in Italy, right? You told me on WhatsApp.
I live part-time in Paris and part-time in Venice, but I'm from Germany actually. My nationality is German.
Yeah. So, Dorothy, first of all, congratulations on the success of, I'll say, Paradise of Diana because I cannot pronunciate the French name. So, I will tell the English name of it, Paradise of Diane. It received critical acclaim. So, thank you for that. For congratulations for that. And your first album, La Kilometers, I think it's currently streaming on Spotify, right?
Yeah, you can hear some songs I did on Spotify and also some collaborations. But my first album is not yet out. It will come out soon. I will.
Okay. So Dorothy, what I try to do in these interviews is I keep it super informal, I keep it super chill, and I try to know the person behind the artist. Now the world can see the artist and the creations that they make, but I am more interested in knowing the person. So I think the best way to start, the best place to start is always childhood, right? So you mentioned growing up in Germany. Your
Well,
national
I am German. Well, my mother is German. I am German too, and my father is Belgian. But actually, I was born in Germany, in Frankfurt, in West Germany. But we moved a lot around with my parents. So, in fact, I grew up in Spain, in Barcelona, where we moved when I was 5, and I went to Paris when I was 18. So I spent my childhood in Spain. You see, where the movie Les Paradis de Diane takes place.
Okay, so in India we have something called Pan India, right? Because India has several states and several languages and art that transcends all the language barriers. We call it Pan India. So your life has been Pan Europe, right?
Yeah,
Spared you, but so many.
absolutely.
Yeah, so you're a Pan European like a person. So Dorothy, you mentioned growing up in Germany, and I think the time frame that we are looking at where the Berlin Wall has not fallen, so it was still East and West Germany, right?
Yeah. I was born in 1977, so it was the old world. It was yeah.
Okay, so you're from West Germany. You mentioned Frankfurt, so it would be West, right? So it would be West Germany. So how was like growing up? Were you always interested in art? You mentioned that you were born in West Germany, then you moved to Spain. You obviously have a quite a cross-cultural parenthood as well. Your father being a Belgian and your mother being a German. So how was like growing up in like I guess 1980s Spain?
Growing up in Spain in the 80s, 90s. Well, I was in a French school, in a very how do you say? It was in a neighborhood where there were a lot of people from all Europe, and I think a lot of very exciting things took place in Spain in the 80s because it was after the dictature from Franco, and there was a lot of liberty exploding, and like the punk scene was very strong. But I was in a world totally cut from this. So I didn't, it was not, for me, it was not such a happy period, because I was really in a world where, there was only rich people, only, yeah, I had not real contact with the real people from Spain. So I didn't enjoy it so much. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So, Dorothy, you are obviously a very creative person, both as an actress and as a singer. Is it something that always was part of you? Were you always very creatively inclined? Like we in India, I think the creativity string from grassroots level is not as strong. But were you always a creative person, like participating in dramas or like music competition and stuff? I'm not sure if it was even around in 1980s Europe, but were you always creatively inclined?
Yeah, I was a very creative child because I was very often very bored. So I wrote stories, played drama in my bathroom. I learned piano very when I was very small. Yeah, I always been creating. Yeah, that's true.
Awesome. So, and I think it's a little bit of a curiosity question. So in India, because we like speak three, four languages, like every Indian speak at least three languages, right? Because of the language diversity, and it's a flex, right? But I don't think we can. I can flex because you probably speak several languages yourself, coming from
Mhm.
so many cultural backgrounds. How many languages do you speak?
I speak, well, I speak French, German, Spanish, Italian now, English, five languages. But
That's
not
more than.
all. You see, my English is very bad, so I'm not. I don't
No
speak.
worry, English is not my first language either. I told you, right? I'm from West Bengal. So being English is like my third language behind. So don't worry about that at all. So Dorothy,
How
you
do you
mentioned
call
about
what is the how do you say
yes, India, the states, we have 30 plus states, okay? And
Mm-hmm,
most of the states are divided based on language, okay?
mm-hmm,
Like in
mm-hmm,
West Bengal, it's Bengali speaking people, which I am. Like if you go to southern part of India, it is called Tamil
mm-hmm,
Nadu is Tamil language. We have two
mm-hmm,
Telugu speaking states called Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. In Kerala, they speak Malayalam. In
mm-hmm,
Karnataka, they speak Kannada, not like the Canada, but Kannada, similar
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
pronunciation. In Punjab, they speak Punjabi. So in India, we have 20 plus languages
Yeah.
that we speak. So in most, like if you meet any random Indian, they speak three, four languages. But
Mm-hmm,
you are also from, like you have a very similar type of background as well because we are exposed to various type of cultures.
mm-hmm.
But you are like in a lot of ways in like you are very Indian in a lot of ways because you
Yeah,
have
I
like
no, that's so funny. Yeah, maybe I'm Indian.
yes, like because like in India, you would be exposed to various cultures, which were
Mm-hmm,
you are exposed to various cultures as well because of moving around, because of your because of your
mm-hmm.
parents and all that. So yeah, in India, most people speak three to four languages.
Yeah, I saw it in the when I saw the trilogy of Apu's trilogy, from
Yes, Abu trilogy directed by Satyajit Roy, who was a Bengali.
yeah, there are many languages I noticed. I think.
So yes, so Dorothy, after Spain, so you mentioned that it wasn't a particularly fulfilling time in Spain. You did not make like meaningful contact. So after that, did you move to Germany or did you like go to someplace else?
I moved to France, to Paris.
Okay. So
Yeah,
was
and there
Paris
I
like? Please go ahead.
and actually I think my life began when I was 18 and I moved to Paris with very welcoming people everywhere and yeah, so this is when I started also studying, discovering a big city. It was really nice.
Before we move to your life in Paris, in India, like parents play a very important role in our life. Like you are
Mm-hmm.
very like a family-oriented creatures. We Indians. So like, were you influenced by your parents? You mentioned that you're always inclined towards art. You like to play piano. You did
Mm-hmm.
drama by yourself. You wrote. So was it something that was influenced by your parents? Was it something that you inherited from your parents?
No, I don't think so. I mean, yeah, my father likes a lot music. He is always listening to music, and my parents wanted us. We are three sisters, and they wanted us all to learn an instrument. But it was not. It was just because all parents this at that time. I'm actually from my sisters. I'm the only one who kept on doing music. So it's not really an influence from my parents. It's more like I needed to express emotions, and I did it many ways by writing, by composing, and yeah, and by
So
interpreting texts, and yeah.
okay, so it was a so art was an individual expression for you, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
what kind of movies you were watching growing up? Because I'll be moving to Paris after that, and Paris in mid 90s, the Paris film industry was thriving at that time. The European film scene was not like this as it's unfortunately has become in 25. So what kind of movies you were watching growing up before you moved to Paris?
Well, before I moved to Paris, I saw a lot of movies, the movies that came out in the cinema. But in Spain, in that time, the movies were always doubled in Spanish. You couldn't see a movie in the original language. So I saw I saw all the 80s movies which were very successful. I in Spain, in Barcelona, in the 90s, there was not like a video, like a club for connoisseurs, for cinema specialists. It was really the commercial, average cinema, American films, American movies,
So
which
it was
were,
American movies dubbed in Spanish, right?
yeah. So I mean, I don't even know the titles in English because I watched them in Spanish. But there was, Gremlins, all American stuff, which was successful in America, came to Spain. But there was no independent movies coming to Spain in that time. So it's the same when I really discovered the cinema when I went to Paris, because Paris is also really a city which is known to have so much cinemas and so much cine clubs and restoring movies and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the time you're talking about, so you mentioned that you moved to Paris when you were around 18, right? So it
Yeah.
would be mid 90s. And in mid 90s, like French cinema was thriving at that time. That was a really strong phase of French cinema. There were more cinema halls as well, more economical cinema halls that people had access to. So how was like Paris in 90s when French cinema? Now, if you probably go to 25 Europe, it's mostly Hollywood dependent, right? The native cinema has shrunk a lot. Maybe it's not the case in places like France or Germany, but in most other countries, Hollywood has taken over. But in 1990s, it wasn't that case.
I'm not sure I understood your question. You say, how was the French cinema in the 90s?
Yes, how was the French cinema in the 90s? No worries, I'll speak slowly. So in 1990s, French cinema was booming, right? It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
not
yeah,
like
yes, yeah, actually, yeah.
yes, so it was booming in 1990s, and unfortunately now what has become is the European cinema. There are like one or two holdouts where the native cinema, like Germany, I think is one of the places where German cinema does well, and France, French movies always do well in France. But in most other European countries, the native cinema has been replaced by Hollywood. The native language film has shrunk. But in 90s, that was not the case, right?
No, yeah,
Especially in
in the 90s there were always there was so much movies coming out, like you couldn't go and see them all. Yeah, that's true.
yes. So how was like the French cinema in 1990s? What type of movies that you watch? And like I think you came from Germany, you went to Spain, and from Spain you went to a big city in Paris, which was in 1990s basically the center of global cinema. Movies were shot there. A lot of like big producer like production houses are based out of France, out of Paris, I should say. So how was this cross cultural experience, and how like what was the movie scene like?
Well, the French cinema in the 1990s, I didn't see so much French movies, but there was the Desplechin movies, which were very successful. It was always, I think, well, I didn't see. What I remember, it was always a movie taking place in Paris with a man from like 40 or 50 years old and a young girl like 20 or 25. It was always like very, I don't know. It was very, how do you say, very machist, you know? The movies were all made by men and and by older men, and they showed a relationship between a man who is aging, and a young student who is like a muse for him. This is a very French disease, I think, but also in music, in everything, there is this attraction to for the artists to be Pygmalions. You see, to have a young woman which they will form and which will inspire them. And this has changed a lot now, but in the 90s, it was the rule was this. I don't know if I'm answering to your
No, no,
question,
absolutely.
actually.
You have put it beautifully. So I guess I think it's like feminist inside you that spoke, right? And you
Yeah.
mentioned absolutely,
No.
and you mentioned like what is like a very valid thing, and that is the male gaze problem, right? You mentioned that older men were making things that would make them happy when they see on screen, and that is totally fine. You pulled you mentioned the elephant on the room. So I think French cinema now has changed. I think like once French cinema was for a time, it felt like, and I'm not sure if you felt that same way as well. It was like overtly sexual for quite a some time. It was like the like it very like unintentionally provocative. Like it maybe so much wasn't necessary, so much provocation, so much sexualization wasn't necessary. But you made a very valid point in like male gaze and like older men basically making things that would make them happy. But yes, anyway, but there is two sides to it as well. The one side you mentioned, the older men and the male gaze problem, and secondly, French cinema, unlike a lot of movie industries, actually has historically quite a few female directors as well.
But I mean,
Look at
what I was saying about the movies from the 90s, it's not such a, yeah, I'm feminist, but like most women, I'm not. It's not I'm okay with male gaze. I mean, when I see a Hitchcock movie, that it's totally male gazing, and it's okay for me. But I thought this those movies and those singers also, it was always the same thing. It was boring, you know, super boring, always the same thing. And you cannot identify to I couldn't identify myself neither to the character, the older character, male character, neither to the young lady who is just an object. It was not interesting. But it's not because she was sexualized. For me, it's okay to be sexualized, but it's just always the same and boring. Yeah, very repetitive. Where you could know what would happen. You could say what would happen and how people would be filmed. That's what I meant.
so initially in mid 90s there was like formulaic film about like older men musing on younger women, and you did not find it like interesting. So what kind of movies were you watching at this time?
I was at this time, really, I was doing like a lot of students. I was constructing my culture, my cinema culture. So I was going to all the cinemas in Paris who were projecting old movies because I haven't seen them before. So I was like every 3 or 4 times a week in the cinemas. They are all in the same neighborhood in the 5th and 6th arrondissement, where you could see a lot of versions, a lot of old movies, American movies, but also French movies, German. It was great. And this is basically what I saw in the 90s, actually. Then in 2005, when I began also to play some roles in the cinema, I went to see movies which were made in that time. But before that, I was like really constructing my culture.
Yes, I was actually about to ask that as well. So you are always a creative person. You mentioned that you like to express yourself through art, and you are always interested in cinema. You watched movies in Spain, and after that, you obviously watched new and old films in France as well. So how did this transition happen? Like what was the when you saw like cinema, you thought that okay, this is an medium for me to express myself because you are always a creative person. You mentioned that. So how did that transition happen from an audience to an actress? And you saw this medium, this cinema, and thought that okay, I can express myself through this medium.
It happened by chance because I was living with I had a love story with a French director, cinema director. But in the time where I was with him, he didn't make movies, and so I know. J'ai rencontré. So I knew his friends. They were all making movies, so I made some rules for them, but just to see how it was, and I kind of liked it. But I really didn't look for it. I never had an agent. It was not something I was looking for. I didn't want to play in movies. It was like I made it sometimes. I was very more interested by music, and then when I applied to the role of Diane in Les Paradis de Diane, It was like very new for me because it was my first principal role. It's a big part. And yeah, and really they left me a lot of space for me to express what I thought of the character from Diane, which was I was very thankful for that.
So you mentioned that you started doing roles. So were these like short films? Because in America, the process is like if you're trying to like make a career yourself as an artist, as an actor, or as an actress. So what the process is, they make short films, then they probably do some amateur stuff, maybe crowdfund something, and because there is that ecosystem for crowdfunding in America. So what is like the process? Like if a person in France tries like wants to be an actor or an actress, what is the process? Like did you did like short films and stuff?
No, you know what I did? I was only in long films, normal films, but I had a very small part in it. It was always a very small character. But no, actually, I'm the only short film I was in. It was after Les Paradis de Diane, you see. So there is not really, I don't know. I think there is not. Yeah, normally when you want to be an actor, yeah, you study, you go into a theater school, and then you begin doing auditions and maybe applying for short films and then long films. But I think the you can start also in a longer film. I think it's more for the film directors. They actually when they start filming, they will do a short film before doing a long movie.
Okay. So I'm just moving away from the acting a little bit. You are obviously you're a singer, and probably I think the way I saw you probably connect like associate yourself more as a singer, right? You think of yourself more as a singer than an actress.
Yeah,
That's the yeah. I have noticed that as well. So like were you trained a singer? Like how did the singing begin?
Well, I was always playing instruments and learning the piano and also flute and also bass guitar, like playing with friends. I was in several groups when I was young, doing some collaborations with some French musicians and singers. And so doing these collaborations and singing with them, it gave me I started composing my own songs. Yeah, but it came late, you know. I was very long time playing, doing gigs with friends, you know, just as a musician, yeah.
So by group you mean band, right? Because in 90s band
Yeah.
was music bands
No,
were very
not in the 90s. But I was not ready in the 90s, you know. I was young in the 90s. More in the years 2005, 6, and yeah, like playing in cabaret groups. But it was always very theatrical parts what we did. So the shows we did, we changed ourselves. We were masked sometimes. So it was. I think it has something to do with playing, also with acting.
Okay, so it was more like a musical performance, right? Not just singing or playing instrument. A cabaret style as musical performance.
Yeah, I have done. Yeah, but you know, I can do also a serious singing. It just things are not so characteristic. You know, it's a lot of things at the same time.
Absolutely, yes. And like after like singing and acting, like did you like are the things that you do, singing and acting, did you always wanted to make a profession out of it, or was it something that you treated it as a hobby? Okay, something this is my passion. I want to express myself through music. You mentioned that you are already doing acting and stuff. So was it something that was by passion, or were you pursuing it on a professional level, like earning from it?
But I think you have to do what you do. You have to do it by passion, and if you can live from this, then it's great. But maybe you can. Well, me for the moment, I don't live from music. I live from doing translation. You know. So, but yeah, my purpose is making sure that the most people listen to my music. So this is the objective that I have. but I don't think in terms of earning money from music for the moment. Well, yeah.
So, like, how was the process? You mentioned that you're in the process of making your first album, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
obviously, for a long time, you are part of a musical group and you have done the stage productions and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is the process? Like, how difficult it is for an independent artist to produce a solo music, even if you are not financially dependent on it? You mentioned that you have like other sources of living. You do it
Mm-hmm.
purely for passion and purely to express yourself. So what is the journey of like making your first album?
For me, everything takes a very long time. Okay, so I need to have the idea from music, and the idea for a text, and also an idea for each song. There has to be an idea, like a surprise, like something that I didn't think of, and I say, oh, this is working on. Okay, if there is not this surprise, the song will not be good. I mean, it will be okay, but not worth working on it. Okay, so this always, and these ideas, they don't come by chance. So you have to work to play your piano every day, and you have a lot of ideas. Most of them are rot, so you don't use them. And sometimes you have this idea, this surprising idea, which may make it happen. And yeah, so it's very long. So once you do that, you record it. You have like what we call a maquette in maquette, but it doesn't sound very good. You have to record it again in your own studio if you have one. I do everything at my home, or in a professional studio if you don't have the instruments and the mics. And then you go to a mixer who will mix your song, which can be very traumatic, because you hear your song in a very strange way. So you have to be very patient and maybe accept not to have all control. Then the song or the album will be masterized, and then it's ready. You can either you put the songs on internet, or you make a vinyl. My idea is making a vinyl, or you make a CD, and you can find a, or it can be a label who is doing all this for you, or you can do it on your own. Well, today it's very easy to do music, and to do music, to record music, and to make it, to have people listening to it. But there are a lot of people doing this. To do a good music, I think, well, like everything is so easy that maybe you can be too quick, and I think it's not good to be too quick. Not being too long, because if you're too long, you will just abandon your songs, or say, well, this song, I don't like it anymore because I wrote it 5 years ago and it doesn't seem like me anymore. But not too quick.
So your first album is called La Kilometers, right? And I'm probably mispronouncing the French, so please excuse me. So it's La Kilometer, right? How do you pronounce it in France?
It's Les Kilomètres. It's not. It's the last. It's one of the songs from the album, but the album is not called Les Kilomètres. You see, I have 3 songs from the album out. There is La Professionnelle, there is La Chasse, and there is Les Kilomètres. But
Okay.
the album is not.
Okay. So, and if anyone wants to listen to these songs, they are available on Spotify, right?
On Spotify, yeah, on all platforms, Apple, yeah, Deezer, Cobus, everything.
Awesome. So all the best for your first album, and it's something that is unique because French is not your first language, and you're composing music in French and like about to release an album. You have already released some. This is an extraordinary thing for someone who's born in Germany and raised in Spain to make a album in French. You're maybe like the third home of yours. So it's a quite an unique thing. I told you, you're like pan-European. I mentioned to you. Now let's get back to the connection of like what brings me, like what made me or familiar with you, and that is like the Paradise of Diane. The English title is called The Paradise of Diane. So how was the process of making this movie?
What do you mean for how was the process for how did we make this movie, or?
Yes, so I think Paradise of Dan is an independent cinema, right? So how
Yeah.
was the process of making the movie? Were you always, because you mentioned that it was your first like a big break, and you like really took the Diane character onto yourself, right?
Mhm.
And you mentioned that outside on like on WhatsApp as well. So how was the process? Like how was the process of you playing the character of Diane, and how was the making of the film? Are there any challenges? Because independent cinema, there are always obstacles, right?
Mhm.
So how was the process?
So when I was contacted by the directors because we had a mutual friend who thought of me for the part from Diane. So I met them in a cafe. We talked a bit about the role. And then I saw them, I think, 2 times after to do the casting. Yeah, I'm 2 times. We met in an apartment where I played some scenes. There was a lot of improvisation also. It was very interesting for me because it was like the first time I really did some improvisation. And after that, maybe 1 month or 2 months after that, they called me and they told me, okay, now you will be our Diane. So I was very happy. But it's an independent film. So finally, the film was shot 1 year, more than 1 year, maybe 2 years later. Yeah, because there was a lack of budget. So we shot the film 2 years later, and but we prepared a lot. There was a lot of preparation for the also Carmen. It's a couple. It's a film from a couple of directors, and the screenplay was written by Carmen. And she was reading and rewriting a lot all the time. We talked a lot about the person of Diane, about this character, which is a bit mysterious. And yeah, there was a lot of preparation. After that, we went all to Benidorm in Spain, and we shot all the parts of Benidorm before the parts from Zurich. So all the traumatic scenes, well, the violent scenes, which in the movie come at the beginning, we shot them at the end of the movie. So I don't know, but I think it gives to my character a lot of smoothness, which maybe I wouldn't have if we had done the part in the hospital in Zurich at the beginning. But I think it's cool because it's like a bit like a western. You don't know much about this woman. What is she doing there? And I don't know. I think it was very intelligent. I think it was not because of that, because of this, that they shoot it in these two separate parts and in this order. But it was quite, I think, benefic for the character of Diane.
So yes, the character of Diane, it was a complex character. First of all, the movie is a very performance-driven movie, right? It's something
Mm-hmm.
that rides or dies on the performance of the actress or any other performer, and it's a very challenging role from a physical point of view as well. That
Yeah.
involves nudity. You obviously there was a pregnancy to it. There was like scenes of abuse. So it was a very physically demanding role as well in more ways than one. So how did you approach this role? Because you were not like a full-time actress, right? And you mentioned that you associate yourself more as a singer. So how difficult was this role to perform these scenes in front of camera? So tell me about the process. How did you approach this film? And you mentioned it's a long process. It took 2+ years to complete.
Yeah, well, as I said, with the directors, we prepared a lot before the movie. We made a lot of readings from the screenplay. And well, I don't know. I really didn't feel. I didn't feel so much that it was difficult. It was very. There was no psychological directions, but they wanted to avoid psychology. They wanted to avoid everything that I. They didn't want me to think of what would be the motivation or why is she doing this. So it was more like a person who is trying to survive and to face strange situation, strange people, but people who are as broken as she is. And it was actually, it's I shouldn't say that, but it was actually the part in Benidorm was actually funny to play because I was meeting so much funny people. The people in Benidorm, they are a bit crazy. It's like I don't know if maybe there is in India something like this, but maybe a sect or something. But it's people who is drunk from morning to evening. English drunk people, but very funny also, dressing so funny. They have no problem with how they look like, what they're wearing. I think I was like a bit very observative, and it goes with my person, because Diane, she has thrown at the beginning when she arrives in Benidorm, she doesn't want to be chased by her family, so she throws her phone and also her money and her card, her visa card, so she has nothing. She has to find a way to survive. So she has to be very observative. She has to look at what people do, if people is threatening her or if they will help her. So I was really on this set piste, this motivation. How can I survive? This woman, this old woman, she seems she has something. I want to know her, so I will try to know her. It was in that way.
Okay. And the movie turned out to be really good. I have told you this. I saw that movie and I really liked it. I really liked your performance. That's why I
Thank
reached
you.
out to you. So what are the what are projects that you're currently pursuing? You obviously mentioned that you're on the process of making your first album and 3 songs are out. And in terms of acting, what are your future plans?
Well, my plan now is finishing my album and taking it out and maybe play and doing some concerts. I don't have. Yes, I have two movies, which a short film and a longer film coming out, but I don't know when. In the moment, they're in post production, and that's it. I don't have another plan for acting, which I would like to, but you see, it's very in France. Everything is very, I think, is very separate, and maybe trying to be an actress when you're like 45 years old, it's not the better age
By the way,
to.
you don't look. I don't. I'm not trying to flatten you. You don't look anywhere near your age.
No, but
Perfectly fine.
it's not the better age to start this career. I think it's like the moment where the parts for women just disappear. So we'll see. I think a lot of things arrive to me by surprise, like little miracles. So I just hope that it will keep on going like this.
Yeah, no worries. You mentioned earlier that things take time in your life, right? Things don't happen instantaneously to you. So maybe there is a process for it. Roles of movies, in your first lead role, there is a lot of nudity to it. There is a lot of exposure to it. So you can handle it differently because I have spoken to other actresses doing exposing stuff, doing nude scenes and stuff like that for a first timer is actually quite challenging, but you have done the math, but because you probably are you have practiced art for a long time, you have done stuff, you're obviously into music, I think that probably eases out. That is my assumption, so don't worry about that.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned at the beginning that you write, obviously you writing stuff. So has there ever thought of have you ever thought of an idea that you want to direct some stuff, maybe because I can see that you're a very creative person. So directing a short film or a feature film is a place, right? So can we see yourself behind the camera something?
Actually, I wrote some screenplays, but they're not good. I'm not such a good writer. I think if you do a movie, you have to be sure that it's good. So I wasn't sure that it was good, so I didn't go further with my screenplays. But maybe one day, I don't know. Maybe.
No worries, and all the best for your album, and all the best for you mentioned the two movies that are on your pipeline. And last time, this is just like a fun type of question. So, have you watched any Indian cinema? You mentioned the Oppo trilogy at the beginning. So, have you watched any Indian cinema? Because India produces most films in the out of the whole world.
I watch only the old ones. But if you can, if you can give me an advice for an actual Indian film, go on, because I'm very curious.
Okay, no worries. I will send you the links to and stuff.
Yeah, but
So
I
don't
really
worry.
love the Satyajit Ray films. All the actors are so great in his films, and the music too from Ravi Shankar. I think really
Yeah,
it's
Pandit Ravi Shankar is also a Bengali, so he's also from the part of India where I am from. That is West
mm,
Bengal. That is Kolkata. Okay,
uh-huh.
so it's
You know that I think you know it, but I think that when Jean Renoir, the French director, he made a film in India which was called Le Fleuve, the river, and I think that Satyajit Ray was working on it, but Satyajit Ray was very young. But I think he worked on it. He was doing maybe I don't know what he did, but he was on this movie.
yes, I think yes, that probably probably sounds right. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, like the connect. I think European cinema, and I told you earlier this as well. I always think that India as a culture, as a cinema culture, is
Mm-hmm.
much closer to Europe than to America. Even
Yeah.
though Indians watch more Hollywood movies, and there is like a million reasons for that, but having watched movies from all around the world, I think Indian cinema, the actual Indian cinema, now the cinema of India is also changing. It's very close to the European cinema. So I think like people from India, they watch European cinema, they feel an instant connection. They
Mm-hmm.
feel the psychological rigor, the intelligent storytelling, relatable characters, real, no over the top stuff. Now, obviously, this is changing. And same with like, I have like European friends, they actually like watching Indian cinema as well, again, for the same
Mm-hmm.
reason. So I guess culturally speaking, cinema culture, maybe the society is different, but culturally, India and European cinema is actually pretty close.
That's a nice, yeah. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. I don't know Indian culture and Indian cinema so well, but yeah.
Okay, Dan, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And I need to say this before I end this interview. I watched Paradise of Diane. I really liked it, and I just pinged Dorothy out of blue. And then after speaking for a few minutes, let's do an informal interview. And it was like that. It's like completely out of nowhere. And Dorothy was kind enough to agree to that. And thank you so much, Dorothy, and all
Thank
the
you.
best for like your upcoming album as well as the two movies that is currently in pipeline.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.